com. David, welcome back. It's been a while.
It's been a while, Kerry. Thank you for having me.
As always. Hey, and we're going to be getting together next month in beautiful Vancouver. You know, why we go there in the winter sometimes is a mystery to me, but we got the resource conference coming up and a smaller conference, so it's going to be good to see you again.
Well, thanks. I was looking for you.
So we see a little bit of movement here. It looked like for a while that gold was just going to keep dropping and maybe go into the 1100s and stay there for a while. But as always, when you're talking about the yellow metal, it never does what anybody expects.
It's been a tough call, I think, for everybody in the business the last few years. I mean, 2016 was so rewarding. I called the bottom in 2015, which is still the bottom in this intermediate term cycle. And I think it was 1047. I forget the exact number. Anyway, the point being that we're higher now. And the last probably 5 out of 6 years, the lowest trade of the year has been the last trading day of the year, or close to it, within a couple days. And I was thinking, we'll probably see the same this year. But as you just said, we've gotten some pretty strong up moves here, 3 in a row for both metals. And we may be starting to rally. Going back to what I started to say, in 2016 from the 15 bottom, I expected a nice rally into January. I mean, the market was so oversold. It was pretty easy to forecast. Well, that market rallied all the way into late summer, which no one expected, I don't think. I certainly didn't, but we kept moving up our stops. We stayed with that rally the whole way. We had bought AG as a trade, our First Majestic, and I think we made about 5 times on our money. While silver had a nice rally, it didn't make you 500%. And I called that top, but I expected a pullback in 2016, which we saw coming into December. And I really thought that 2017 would build on that, and I was wrong. And I thought 2018 would at least match betterment to what we saw in 2017. And again, not the case. So, we're going to do better next year or not remains to be determined. I mean, that's a safe answer. I think with what we're seeing with this rally now, I think it might be an early rally into January. So we might see this. I expect it to carry through into January. But it might just finally be what we've all been waiting for so very long, and that is a change in mood, a shift in mentality where, stocks I'm leaving and metals I'm getting back into. I think the cryptos will add to that as well, Kerry. I'm anticipating your question, but a lot of money. In fact, I was really wrong in a way. I realized a fair amount of money moved out of silver into the cryptocurrencies, but I think I miscalculated just how much actually did. And now the cryptos have been basically on a downward slope most of this year. I think some of that money is coming back. Or will find its way back into the metals. So I think there's a lot of fundamental reasons and technical reasons to see the metals do better next year.
Yeah, well, when you talk about cryptos, certainly cryptos sucked all the oxygen out of the sector, I think, regardless how much, but also the broader market going up 20+% per annum for the past couple of years. All those factors. And then there's the other thing is millennials, I mean, I know you have some children, I've got mine. They don't have a good historical sense of exactly what precious metals are about, do they?
No, there's, there's always a rewriting of the textbooks. They're, I hate the expression, but it's true, dumbed down. It's almost a comic book. They don't go through the U.S. Constitution like they did when I was in school, explain what it means, why it's there, and what happened, and no one's really taught anything about money or the financial system or how money works or how banking works or what fractional reserve banking is or why it's a fraud or anything else. So these things are left to, as long as I've got my phone and I've got Apple Pay, I'm good to go, right?
Yeah, of course, right? That's all you need, right?
And there's no, the old expression, it's a mile wide and, a quarter inch thick. There's no depth to anything anymore. I mean, to get really down deep in the rabbit hole, having dug, your way in and really examined every scoop of dirt as you pulled your way through to really see what's going on. I mean, that takes work. It takes energy and it takes persistence. And most are in this super hyper, what I call ADD world, attention deficit disorder. I mean, if you're on an app and you're not seeing what you want within about 3 to 4 seconds, they're off that and on to something else. And it's just not I'm not saying this is the case all across the board, but generally speaking, I'm accurate. And, I'm part of it. I mean, I will sit there. I'm not going to take the high ground that I mean, a lot of us have just been conditioned with this technology to not look deeply at anything. It's a surface level, and this is very easy to control a population if everything is sound bites and no real examination of questioning. Question everything. Question authority. Question the news, the real news, the fake news, the alternative media, and dig deep. It's better to have, it's kind of the quality versus quantity thing. There's quantity, unbelievable. I mean, how much news is out there if you count the alternative media versus quality news? There's very little quality news available.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree more. We know that, the concept of fake news, it's really out there. Nobody can deny that it exists here, David. And it's the dominant type of news, the dominant news product that's served up to the general public. And that's in every country in the world. That's not the United States or Canada or China. It's everywhere, David. And you really have to go searching and trying to deconstruct the news that's fed to you to try to get to the truth, because the truth is never as it appears. I mean, we know this. So think critically, question everything, and don't believe anything anyone has to say, and I guess you'll be okay, or at least you'll begin to get a glimpse of the truth. So going back to the seasonality of the metals, it almost looked like this year, because it happens 70%, 80% of the time, where precious metals will go up in December and January. Almost looked like it wasn't going to happen this year, like we'd have the Grinch that stole Christmas.
Yeah, well, as you said, it looks like it is going to happen this year. It's pretty much on its way. I mean, normally what you said is correct. There have been a few years, as I just mentioned a minute ago, that really they sold off to the end of the year, and the seasonality was sort of pushed out a bit into January. I think it was last year, year before. It was the 19th of January.
Yes.
The metals had bottomed in December, but the stocks bottomed on the 19th of January. I remember making a trade on that day, just lucky, you might say, being, that day being the exact low. And then we got a pretty good rally from there. But if you're a trader, not advocating one way or the other, we do both. But January, if you buy late December and hold through the month of January, you usually do pretty good. And sometimes it goes into, seasonality used to be December into like the 1st of March. I mean, it was pretty much, you could almost bank on that, but that's years and years ago. That no longer holds nearly as much as it used to.
Yeah, definitely. But still it's there. And then looking forward to what's going on with metals. So production is continuing to decline, correct, in gold and beginning in silver?
Yeah, gold is, I'm pretty convinced we've seen peak gold. Silver, I don't think we've seen peak silver. People might be mad at me for saying that. If they read the Silver Manifesto, they'll know why. But I'm aware of a couple really large projects that are just getting underway that will bring more silver to the surface. But the last couple of years, we have really mining-wise plateaued. So for 2 or 3 years, we've kind of plateaued in silver. I think it will increase over the next probably 2 or 3 years. But still, if you go to the USGS, United States Geological Survey, and read their work, they'll tell you that the first element to come off from the periodic table that's going to become extinct, and I'm using their words, not mine, is silver. Of course, it won't be extinct. But what they're saying is that it'll be uneconomic to mine, and therefore the mining of it will be curtailed. And that's only partially true because 70% comes up as a result of lead, zinc, copper mining, and 10% roughly comes from gold mining. So those elements would have to be uneconomic to mine to really impact the silver supply.
Yeah, really have to be. Yes, so it's a little bit panic, a little bit of a misleading.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I try to be objective. I mean, I love the silver market. You know, we do a lot more at the Morgan Report than just that. But certainly it's been a passion of mine for decades. But the truth is that, people that use that, I don't think are telling the whole story. The whole story is what I just gave you.
Yeah. Yeah, so what about the concept of recycling silver? Has that gotten any closer to becoming a reality?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done a lot in the United States to make it a bigger industry. I mean, right now, if you look at the tables, we've recycled somewhere in the 160 million ounces of silver on an annual basis, mostly from electronics. If you go back to 1999, it was the peak year for recycling, and almost all of it, or the lion's share of it, was photographic waste. Back in 99, certainly there were computers, but not smartphones that hold gold. So there wasn't nearly the amount of electronic recycling that there is today. I think you'll see more of it. As you know from the Morgan Report and me comping you a subscription, I've been really big on this company that does recycling of precious metals from basically circuit boards and other waste, but primarily from computer boards, circuit boards, motherboards. And it's quite lucrative. It's very, very interesting that you can get more gold out of a ton of smartphones than some of the major gold mines are mining current day. And there's no, it's an easy business from the aspect of you don't have to go dig and drill and find the gold and then get it permitted and do a feasibility study and a preliminary economic analysis and get your mining engineer in there and then get the EPA to approve it and on and on and on and on. I mean, you just basically take these motherboards these cell phones, grind them up, put them through the process with this secret sauce, this product that's inert, that's a replacement to cyanide, and out comes the precious metals, and they extract basically all of them. So it's very environmentally friendly, and it's very very high in recovery, like over 90%.
That's pretty amazing. So is that starting to become a trend here? What's going on with that?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that as the economy changes and we're being a little more conscious, hopefully, about not wasting as much. I think your bigger outlets like your Samsungs, your Apples, your major producers of cell phones will have some kind of a buyback program or give you a reward if you turn in your phone to a recycler. I'm pretty sure you'll see more and more of that. People become more and more conscious. So they'll pay you a minimum fee. I mean, it's like these We Buy Gold outfits. They do buy gold. They buy it about 30 cents on the dollar, but they buy it.
Sure. Yeah, not the best deal. And how much metal is in like an iPhone, like I'm holding?
Yeah, it's like 4 grams of gold plus other metals. So some of the biggest gold mines are mining like 1 gram a ton, and you're getting 4 grams a ton of gold just in a smartphone. So that's 4 times as much gold sitting in your smartphone than, again, some. There's mines that are richer than that. There are several that are in the 2 gram, 1 gram, 2.5 gram range.
Not unusual. So there's a lot to be harvested from here, huh?
Yeah, you're going to see it increase. I mean, this company that's a small entity right now, it costs them roughly $10 million to put up a plant, and the first year of production, at today's prices and the margins, you make about $50 million. So, I mean, you make payback in, 3 or 4 months.
That's amazing.
And then you've got an ongoing cash cow. So it's pretty lucrative. I think, and this is what I think, forward-looking statement, I own stock. that it'll be paying dividends out to the shareholders in the next, I would say probably 3 years. I want to be conservative, but that kind of cash flow, what do? Well, the owners of the company, which are the shareholders, should be rewarded for making that kind of cash. They'll probably, implement a dividend program at some point. I would expect anyway.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's a great thing. Well, technology kind of holds the key to everything. And, so much of the silver that's used in everyday consumer items is just such trace amounts. It doesn't mean anything individually, but when you multiply times millions of appliances, it's a big consumer of the shiny metal. So there's really no way to recapture most of the silver that's lost through production here.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's unlikely. It depends. I mean, but you're right, Kerry. In a lot of instances, you're not going to retrieve the silver out of the final end product that's manufactured. The refrigerator, the freezer, the washing machine, whatever. I mean, on the more sophisticated products, I mean, I'm going to contradict myself slightly. I think if, there's a board there, which there usually is, and anyone smart would take that board out before they junk out their, the Maytag for a newer model, because it would only take, a few minutes really to unscrew the damn thing and send it in. But people on their own generally don't know it and they'll just junk it. So it has to be kind of an awareness of, these little, microcomputers, if you will, that are attached to all of these smart products, especially with the Internet of Things being pushed upon us. There'll be more and more of it. So I think there'll be a greater awareness that there's some, precious metals in these things, and there'll probably be a greater effort to recycle.
All right. Well, that's a plus, but still recycling, even if you look at cans and bottles, what are we up to? A third? 40% at the most.
Yeah.
Recycling has just never taken the world by storm here. Let's face it. So. Well,
you're right. And, sorry to digress a bit, but I did an analysis on newspaper, and it's a push. You really aren't doing the planet any good or harm by recycling newspapers. Now, I could be wrong. It might have changed, but I just did it as a study because, something came up on one of my searches on, recyclables and, because, it's kind of the energy thing. I don't want to go too far off track, but, it takes money to take that newspaper, truck it across the country, crush it up and reuse it. It's like, is it worth it? Meh.
Mm-hmm. Hey, and you've seen this. Recycling, for the most part, is not economically feasible except for aluminum cans and certain steel. It just doesn't make any sense economically because you do have multiple trucks. Used to be you had one garbage truck. Now you got a garbage truck and you got a recycling truck. And then the recycling truck takes it to the recycling center where they throw half of the stuff in the garbage anyway. And so then it goes into the garbage. So you're left with 25%. And now China has done us the ultimate indignity. They won't take our garbage anymore. Right? They used to be, that was the fifth largest export of the U.S. to China was corrugated empty cartons, corrugated cardboard boxes was our fifth largest export to China. And now they don't want it anymore. The ultimate indignity. They don't want our garbage. But luckily, there's a lot of other countries out there that do want our garbage. so we're okay there for now. But it just shows you that the whole market, it's not a market. If something needs the government to exist and to sustain itself, then it's not really a market because it's not behaving like a market. So that's what it really comes down to. So looking ahead, though, to the longer term, peak gold, perhaps peak silver, perhaps instability in the world economic system. I mean, we're seeing everybody here, David, is inflating their currency. The U.S. supposedly was seeking to raise interest rates back to so-called normalization levels, and it looks like they're going to give that up really shortly if they haven't already. So the thing is, we got these millennials who think that PayPal is money and gold is jewelry. And until they look at it the other way, what can really happen? Because, we're the boomer generation here, David. We're we're relinquishing to the Xers and the millennials, God forbid. And, at some point, are they going to come to their collective senses and understand what money really is? They don't really get what money is, because if they did, they probably wouldn't have gone hog wild into cryptos.
Yeah, I agree. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I think, if you go back to The Fourth Turning, that book, and things go in cycles, and we're at the cycle now where basically our job is to try to teach the millennials to the best of our ability, a lot of things. Monetary system is probably one of them, an important one. Mm-hmm. But these things do cycle. I mean, just like in that movie I was in, the Four Horsemen film. I mean, the Age of Empire, and that's a cycle as well. The age of the pioneer, and then I forget the next one up, and you go to the age of commerce, and then you go to the next age. And so these things repeat over and over again. So I'm not that overly concerned. I am, concerned for the millennials in general and my two daughters specifically, but I also know from history that things have a way of swinging, the pendulum swinging back and forth between political ideologies and that type of thing. My main concern is, Kerry, at the reset, however that's determined, that the powers that be remain in power. It would really be a first if we could get to a point where there is such a thing as a competing currency that people could adopt and be outside of the banking system at large. That would be pretty awesome. I don't hold a lot of hope there, but there's a possibility of it.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be cryptocurrencies, unfortunately, because they have a big flaw. I don't want to get into all the security specifics, but the fact is, it's not the blockchain where the flaw exists. It's the fact that they're distributed. It's distributive. It's got to exist on thousands of computers around the world, and they all update themselves. Trace Mayer always used that Russian general analogy, which I never quite understood, but I kind of get now. So you got to get your orders out to all the troops surrounding the castle simultaneously to plan the attack. And that is, its distributive nature is its greatest asset and its greatest vulnerability, and they haven't planned for that. Without getting further into the weeds, that's why this crop of cryptocurrencies, or many of them, as I call kleptocurrencies, they're really doomed. And I actually have the URL kleptocurrencies.com. If anybody out there wants to buy it, it's for sale. So, David, I guess we'll just keep going along till things actually have to change. Things change not because people want to change, but because they have to change, because the old way doesn't work anymore. I think we're getting closer to that point.
Indeed we are. I agree.